I don't watch the news. I just can't do it. Can't do it. I don't want my emotions to be played with. It's tough enough to be emotionally intelligent in this world, especially in this stressful business. However, like 85 million people in America own crypto.
Get ready for a new episode of KP Talks Dollars and Cents. Learn financial literacy and get real-time updates on all things housing, finance, and real estate. So let's get started. Here's your host, Kevin Perenio.
Hey, it's KP coming to you live from Corona, California. Well, we have a very important week. It's Jobs Week and lots going on. The Fed is in blackout mode, which means they are not allowed to speak. We have a friggin' Fed meeting next week, literally June 12th. Today is the 3rd. It's in the evening here, Monday night. We had a long senior management meeting all day, and it was very fruitful. So I'm sure, like many lenders out there, we're having a great lock month in May, which translates to great number of families being served in the month of June. And then, of course, all bets are off for the second half of the year, starting in July. It's seasonally slower. It's just not as heavy as a purchase season, but who knows? Maybe with less capacity in the industry, with so many people that have exited in the last 2 years, it may feel busier than normal. So we'll see. It's nice to see the 10-year Treasury coming down. So if you haven't been paying attention to that, you've got these ranges, right, where the 10-year Treasury kind of trades up and down, and we've had lower highs. So we had a very high 10-year Treasury mark back in the fall. We're at 4.99%, which caused our interest rates to be like around 8%. And then we had a lower high. Okay, we peaked out. Things got a little dicey with all those January, February, March inflation reports. But I think that 10-year Treasury, that lower high was only 4.74. So about a quarter less. And in the meantime, since the fall, there's been a spread that's been narrowing between the 10-year Treasury and the 30-year rate, which has given us about a 25 basis point improvement in rates. And so lots working as higher rates, which have been deemed sufficiently restrictive since last year. The last time there was a raise, I guess, seemed like July was the last time there was a raise. We've had a 10-year, 2-year Treasury inversion for the longest ever, it seems like. We haven't had a rate cut since the last rate hike in the longest ever. And inflation's starting to soften, and we saw some more softening of that today. But labor seems to be more important, like it's more likely to fall off a cliff faster now that inflation is kind of in this 2.8% range, according to core PCE, the personal consumption expenditure that came out last week. Okay, so what else is going on? There's been some softening in the prices paid. We had what's called an ISM manufacturing report that came out, and that showed that prices paid for manufacturing came down actually almost 4% month over month. That's a pretty big increase. Is that a sign of something to come? Remember Dr. Copper? We talk about a barometer of the economy. Go take a look at a copper chart, and you can see that since May 15th, where copper peaked out in prices, it's been rolling over and coming down. That's typically a sign of less commodities being paid for future production of goods. And so Dr. Copper, they say, has a PhD in the economy. And so if copper prices are coming down, typically that's a sign of future economic slowing. We already know that the GDP came in at 1.3% for that last read. We'll get one more final read of the GDP for Q1 to see if we are under 2%, which is in contractionary territory. Remember, for many years before the rules got changed, under 2% GDP 2 quarters in a row was a classic textbook recession. So who knows? I don't know everything, but I'm learning here. We're all learning together on this journey. Jobs matter. If you want disinflation, how about when someone loses their job and their income goes to zero? How about when prices are so high for so long for so many things that people stop spending, they stop taking the trips, they don't buy the new car, they don't take out the credit card, they don't do the student loan, they don't do all the things, they don't buy the goods. That is disinflation. And it does take time for higher rates to work out. But jobs is very deflationary. when your income goes to zero and there's less, wages in the system to price things out. So to push prices up. So we have a lot of jobs data starting tomorrow. Job opening, labor turnover, the JOLTS report. We've got ADP payroll, which is a great barometer of, white-collar jobs, if you will. And then, of course, Friday's the big one with our jobs report for the month of May from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Will we see a 4% number on the unemployment rate? The estimates are to only be 3.9%, which is what I believe what it was the last month. But it could go up. It could go up to 4. I mean, think about that. There is a psychological effect that it has on people like voters, for example. And if you remember one of my videos I talked about at the NBA Midwinter Conference, Chuck Todd from MSNBC was a keynote speaker. And he said something very interesting, just a fact that I parsed out of all of his complete and total bias. And he's very brilliant, by the way. But he said that how people feel in June about the economy is typically what carries over into the voting box, in the voting booth in November. So it'll be interesting to see if there's a 4% number in front of our unemployment that comes out on this report Friday. Government stuff. Here is something very interesting. Speaking of voters, now I don't watch the news. I just can't do it. Can't do it. I don't want my emotions to be played with. It's tough enough to be emotionally intelligent in this world, especially in this stressful business. However, like 85 million people in America own crypto. They own cryptocurrency. Whether you like it or not, doesn't matter. 85 million people own it. And that's a lot of voters. Well, whenever there's bad news from the government, always kind of trickles out late on a Friday. So always watch the news on Friday. Not like the mainstream media. Just, the news that comes out, little hardwire stuff. I saw in one of my stock subscription analyst reports, which is like, hey, this is stuff that's impacting, the flow of money, the economy, and what goes on. No bias, no spin. It's not conservative, liberal, this, that, the other. It's some kind of political, channel. It's just hard facts. That's what I like to read. On Friday, President Biden vetoed SAB 121. And it was a bipartisan passed bill in both the Senate and the House. Remember the old, I'm a bill, I'm going to the steps, that little cartoon we learned about way back in the day? Well, we hardly passed anything with this Congress under this administration, and we got a veto late on Friday. You didn't hear about it, but it was a bill that would abolish a bulletin that came out from the Securities Exchange Commission, the SEC, which basically said that the SEC has said in the past in a bulletin that staff accounting and members of banks, depository banks, are not allowed to work on as a fiduciary for cryptocurrency. Well, this law passed by both the House and Senate said, no, we're going to do away with that. We're okay with banks being fiduciaries because banks are great stewards of capital. I mean, look at some of the great banks in America. Chase, JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Citibank. I mean, they're just fantastic. Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs. They do a great job of managing money and wealth and risk management. And so who wouldn't want their employees to be a fiduciary to help grow cryptocurrency? Anyway, there's a lot of voters that are probably upset about that, and there was a veto that came out. Speaking of other government stuff that happens, we're just going to stick with the theme here. Did you know that in our infrastructure bill in 2021, the Jobs Act, okay, that there was like $7.5 billion earmarked to create electric vehicle charging stations? Doesn't matter your viewpoint on charging and EVs. I'm from Texas, I get it. Everyone's got a truck and EVs are stupid. I'll tell you, I own a Tesla Model X for 5 years. It's fast as shit. It's a great car. I love it. Anyway, my daughter was 4. She said, get the car with the wing doors, Daddy. So I did. 8 charging stations have been built from this $5 billion of the $7.5 billion in the infrastructure of the Jobs Act. Okay? So the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program is part of that Jobs Act. And there's a group that is control of the $5 billion of earmarked funds. And 8 charging stations have been built. Meanwhile, Tesla has built 2/3 of the nation's charging stations, has gotten Volkswagen, which is a humongous EV seller, the biggest one in Europe, and Mercedes, and even some of the big auto dealers, manufacturers in the United States, to sign on to their version and protocol of charging in America. Now, of course, they've had $2.8 billion in subsidies along the way in their whole, existence. But $5 billion in 3 years, we've only built 8 charging stations with the government's money. Anyway, gotta love our government. It's National Homeownership Month. Thank you, USDA, for 75 years of helping homeowners. Have a great week. Cheers. Hey, it's KP coming to you live from Newport Beach. School's out. People taking pictures, photos, graduations. And our little monkeys had their last day of school today. TK first, third, and fifth graders all out. So we're doing the beach for a week. And it's gloomy. June gloom. May gray, June gloom. But enough of that. We had D-Day, the 80th anniversary of the U.S. Armed Forces storming the beach in Normandy, France. They call it the greatest generation. And gosh, it's pretty incredible what they did if you go back and recount the history. If you've never seen Saving Private Ryan, I suggest you do it. It is a very real depiction of facing headwinds and going into battle, life or death, and banding together as a team. I don't want to make that analogy to our business going into the second half of the year because it's much more serious when you're talking about war. But anyway, can't say enough about the great generation there in D-Day. So if there's any family members that have surviving veterans, please give our regards. Okay, lots going on this week. Oh, by the way, you may notice I got my Zactus golf shirt on here as I get smoked by a bicyclist. We had our senior management meeting earlier this week, and I mentioned it on my Monday night video. And we just talk about all kinds of things that we're dealing. And I know the credit report costs and verification costs and just efficiencies all around in our business, have been front and center for about 2 years. But if volume slows down in the second half of the year, then you're going to be focused back on those costs again. So just great people, great partners. Very rare that I plug companies, but I am for Zactus. They're a great partner, so check them out. They got a lot going on. You can message anybody that's in the chat down below. Okay, Fed speaks next week. Fed meeting and a CPI report, all on the same day. So they're going to take a look at that. By the way, here's your ocean. A little sunset. Not quite there yet. It's kind of over there. Anyway, it's about 7:42 p.m. We got the pier back here. So Fed is speaking next week. Big deal, dot plot. They're going to say, are they doing 2 cuts, 1 cut, 3 cuts? The consensus is that they will come down to 2 on this dot plot. Remember, every other Fed meeting, they put what's called the Summary of Economic Projections, a.k.a. the dot plot. And that's where all the voting members there and board members, they say where they think unemployment will be, how many rate cuts there will be, GDP. Kind of have all of their own teams at all the different, Federal Reserve offices around the country, and they just kind of get their data all together and boom, throw a dot on a plot, and that's it. Then the market moves, just like it did today with the jobs report. So we got our last look at jobs today, the first Friday of June, which shows the May jobs report, and it was a little hotter than all the soft data we saw. Remember, some of the JOLTS report, like the job opening labor turnover report that we saw, that showed, jobs coming down, the openings at like 8.1 million, I think. 2 million less jobs open than just a year ago. That JOLTS number is 2 months old. And the BLS number, which if you check out the hot take with Dan, Barry, and Jay Khabib, they really break down those surveys and the numbers and how it all, is calculated. I can get into all that, but just do yourself a favor and let go break it down. Nobody does it better. And but that's last month's data. And, the JOLTS report, is not going to show if there was a hot read in May. So will a JOLTS report next month be hotter? We're going to find out. But not to break the secret there, but the MBS Highway team, they they are pounding the table that the data is flawed in the jobs report. You have a household survey where you call people, it says there's 400,000 less jobs created. And then you've got the establishment survey where they call businesses, which is having less and less participation, showing that there's job creation. And then such a huge disparity between the ADP jobs report and the JOLTS report. So bottom line, there was almost 90,000 more jobs created today, 273,000. The estimate was supposed to be like 185,000. 4% unemployment, according to that. So there's it technically was 3.96. So I'm going to be technical. They weren't actually 4%. There's this whole debate about, well, there goes the longest streak ever of under 4% unemployment. It's over. Well, it actually is technically under 4%. But again, we know labor's softening. We know out there on the street that people are hurting. And it's not easy to, find another job when you quit. The quit ratio is down. Now, interesting number that came out that made bonds rally and go higher today in the jobs report was not necessarily the headline number. It was the wage inflation number at 0.4% month over month, making a 4.1% rise in wages year over year. Now, that's down from 5.5, so we're making progress. But is this the beginning of a stall out where wage inflation goes higher for a few months? Remember, regular inflation in the CPI went up January, February, and March. So we have 1 month of wage inflation popping up. The estimate was go up by 0.3%. It was 0.4. So if we get a couple months of that, it might make the Fed pause again, having a strong, tight labor market, and taking September rate cuts potentially off the table. Let's watch that 2-year. That's the lifeguard headquarters, by the way. My 9-11-year-old daughter started junior guards here. They right down here on the beach. They actually do like lifeguard training in the summer. It's pretty cool. It's a cool thing out here. Go up in Texas, you got to drive somewhere to get to a lake. There's no oceans. Anyway, so that labor report had a lot of little things in it. But we get a CPI report next week. That's big. But what is the Fed doing? Let's talk about that. So remember, the Fed controls the flow of money. And the dollar is going to get strong if we hold out and don't cut. If we don't cut. Oh, we saw those cops going. Now we got this. They're going on the pier. We got something going down. Maybe someone caught an illegal fish, bite. I'll walk down there. Make it interesting. My first video with a crime scene. Anyway, so the European Central Bank, the ECB, they cut on Thursday by 25 basis points. And they said they're going to go very slow and even it out over a little bit of time, okay? But they weren't the first G7 economic power to do that. Canada cut on Tuesday by 25 basis points. And the Bank of England, yeah. Uh-oh. Okay. We got a lifeguard. If you're still here 8 minutes in, I'm not going to film whatever's going on over there, but I'll throw an update in the comments later. So you have to stay tuned. Oh, shit. Anyway, I'm going to keep it together here. So there's a carry trade. If all these other treasury versions, the gilt, the euro, the yen, the Canadian dollar, it's rather Canada had population loss in 2023, okay? So if all these other, competitors of the treasury have lower yields, other institutional money around the world will come to the dollar, and that makes the dollar stronger, but also has a chance, that carry trade, to bring the yield of the 10-year treasury and even 2-year treasury down. So it does have some impact there. It's called the carry trade. So anyway, crazy event here on the pier. Can't comment on it. Crazy week next week. Hope everyone's doing well. Nothing but drama here on Newport Beach. The main streets of Newport Beach. Cheers, y'all.
You've been listening to KP Talks Dollars and Cents, a top-rated show for those who want to learn about the economy and mortgage environment. Tune in each week for more episodes, and please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Kevin Perenio does not render or offer to render personalized investment or tax advice through KP Talks Dollars and Cents. The information provided is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial, tax, investment, or legal advice. For more info, follow KP Talks Dollars and Cents on all of our social channels.